Hey everybody, Mike with NorCan Hockey here. Hope everyone's having a great season and you're all geared up heading into the playoff stretch. I'm going to touch on a quick skill development topic here. Lately I've been working with a bunch of players and noticing the transition from a wrist shot to a toes forward snapshot is not always as smooth as some players never acquire it. Other ones struggle with it, but I just want to bring a little bit of light to it, what I'm seeing, and I'm not sure if it's right or wrong. Again, just my observations and kind of some of the things I've been messing around with and experimenting, trying to help players acquire this shot. So you can see by this graphic how the energy is loaded into the stick. So you almost think about an anchor point. That blade is, the depth of the blade is set, so as you're pushing forward with your middle hand and pulling back with your top hand, you're essentially using the friction of the ice to the blade to create that flex in the stick and essentially just creating a bow and arrow. So if this were the string, that's pretty much an exact replica of a bow and arrow. You're getting the energy out of that shaft to be able to release that puck and create energy. So what we generally see is the depth of the blade and the friction is not set properly down here, and that's when players end up kind of flipping at it or trying to scoop it, and it turns into a flutter shot and they never really get that energy into the puck. So I've got a few examples here. I'm working with a young girl that's a really good little hockey player and trying to help her through the transition of going from a sweep wrist shot into a toes forward snapshot. And this was probably her first time through. We set up the video camera and let her do a few dozen reps of it just to see where we could make some corrections. And this is the first one, and this is really common for what I'm seeing with this shot. Is right here you can see where the puck is in relation to where her feet are, where her skate base is. And the other thing we're going to look at is stick angle. So this stick is in a decent position right here to actually create that friction and load it up like a bow and arrow, but she hasn't made contact with the puck yet. So if we go forward, contact is made here, and now the stick is already at this angle, so you can't really create that drag on the ice. You can see by where the blade is, it's just almost impossible to get that blade to suck in and drag across the ice so you can get that whip out of the stick. So if the puck is contacted too far ahead of your skate base, there's going to be no energy put into that stick that can be recovered through your shot. So the very first one, puck was way too far ahead in the skate base, didn't get any energy into the stick. And also hand positioning, there should be a point in time where the top hand gets out quite a bit farther than the bottom hand, and you can see here the two hands are almost in line, where that top hand needs to punch out a little farther so you can pull back in violently when make connection with that puck. So that was the first one. Second one's coming here. I guess I didn't turn off the volume, so we got some background sound effects. So with this one, you can see where contact is made. So now we've got it set so contact is made at the skate. So we've actually got a chance, or we've got the ability to create the flex in that stick by having that friction and getting contact closer back to our skates. And you can already see here, just by doing that, we're getting a little bit more whip out of that stick and getting the bottom hand pushing forward, top hand pulling back with your anchor friction point on the bottom, essentially trying to create a bow and arrow with your hands. So this one was better. You can see there was a little bit more velocity on it already, just based on getting it loaded back farther in the stance. And then I went through it once here too. And there's kind of the stick angle we're looking for. If that stick can be back on an angle like this, now again there's that anchor point, my depth is set, bottom hand is pushing forward, top hand is pulling back, again essentially trying to create that bow and arrow whip effect out of the stick. and releasing from there. So here's some stills of pros doing it and what it actually should look like. And I know this is kind of a hot debate. There's people that are on both sides of the fence in the hockey community, and again, I'm just an observer. I'm not taking a real hard stance on either way, but for, essentially we always used to ask players to push down on their stick to push into the ice, but like we're talking about in all of the examples I've seen, to me that glove looks like it's just kind of setting. It's the fulcrum or the pivot point. Top hand is pulling back and your blade is creating friction on the ice. So to me that makes sense that the middle hand is pushing forward or just acting as that fulcrum while the top hand pulls in. It's not actually pushing down just by the way his glove is set. That it would be really hard to actually push down. When you're loaded before that puck is released, there may be a little bit more downward pressure, but I think it's all about just setting the depth of the blade. If that blade is set properly up and down, then you create the energy in your stick by not pushing down, but by pushing forward once your blade is set. And there's another couple examples here. I'll just fast forward to them. So another really good example of it, Phil the Thrill. Again, what does his bottom hand look like it's doing? Does that look like it's pushing forward, or does that look like it's pushing down to you? And top hand is coming in. This is anchored, creating friction along the ice, and now we've essentially created our bow and arrow again. Energy comes out of the power of that stick. I think those were the only still images I had. Back to that Columbus one, same thing again. So, where does his hand look like it's pushing? To me, it looks like it's just creating that pivot point. Top hand is pulling in. Stick is creating friction across the ice, and the depth is just set on it to load that energy into the stick. So without doing video, it's pretty tough for your eye to pick up. So I'd say if you're struggling with this with some players, if you feel like they're flipping at the puck or it's too far out in front of their base, just take a GoPro or your phone and set it up to the side and have every player come in and take a shot. And after watching 20 of your players shoot 1 or 2 pucks each, I'm sure you'll be able to come up with a pretty good idea of what's happening with them and what corrections you can make. But this is another one too. I don't know if you'll be able to correct this on the ice during practices unless you're a skills coach and have players out that you can work on with deliberately. This is one that if a player is hungry and wants to acquire this shot, they're probably going to have to put in some work at home to make sure they get it put into their toolbox and they can use it. Especially female players without the upper body strength, this is a difficult one, but I've seen bantam and midget players at the female level be able to shoot this shot properly with enough time spent getting reps and doing it properly. So hopefully that's interesting to you. Again, most hockey nerds, it's something to discuss. It's an interesting topic, so feel free to leave a comment or let me know what you think. Thanks a lot. Have a good night.